Hacking Hillary. The US president accuses Russia of meddling in its elections, vowing to retaliate. But hasn't America done the same to other countries? Also on today's program, gripping onto power, Gambia's defeated president refuses to step aside. And in Picture This, looking back at the small act of defiance in racially segregated America that sparked a movement. I'm Imran Garta, and this is the Newsmakers. If US Democrats still had any hopes of blocking Donald Trump from occupying the White House, well, they're all dashed now. Trump prevailed on Monday when the US Electoral College voted officially cementing his victory. But a lingering issue still haunting the US election is the allegation that Russia interfered with the campaign, hacking into the Democratic National Convention servers and the emails of Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman. US President Barack Obama has suggested Putin himself made the order and says his administration will respond. Meanwhile, White House cybersecurity advisors have said the alleged hacking has exposed gaping holes in the nation's cybersecurity. Today's Newsmaker is the hacking of America's presidential election. We begin with this report from Yvette McCullough.
This happened at the highest levels of the Russian government, and I will let you make that determination as to whether there are high-level Russian officials who go off rogue and decide to tamper with the U.S. election process without Vladimir Putin knowing about it.
Accusing Russia's president of intervening in America's democratic process. It's unprecedented in US politics, but then again, a lot was in this election. The US is accusing Russia of hacking Democratic Party emails, including those of the campaign chairman of presidential contender Hillary Clinton, and leaking them to influence the outcome of the US presidential race. Some of the emails revealed that DNC staffers had worked behind the scenes to undermine Clinton's primary rival, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. While thousands of emails stolen from Clinton's campaign chairman John Podesta and leaked to WikiLeaks proved to be embarrassing to a presidential race. The White House has suggested President-elect Donald Trump actively encouraged it.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
But Trump later called the CIA's Russia hacking report a conspiracy theory. Now Trump is expected to face a congressional review about Russia's suspected involvement as soon as he takes office.
I think there is no doubt that when any foreign government tries to impact the integrity of our elections, that we need to take action, and we will, at a time and place of our own choosing.
US intelligence agencies say they have evidence that hackers employed by the Kremlin are to blame. But until now, none of that evidence has been specific or made public. And the tough talk from the White House has fallen flat in Moscow, which has demanded the US provide proof.
Я просто даже, знаете, был ошарашен, когда я увидел эту новость на экране телевизора. Мне даже нечего добавить, но, по-моему, глупость и абсолютная бесперспективность вот такой попытки кого-то в этом убеждать, по-моему, очевидна.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange says the Russian government was not the source of the email leaks and has offered to help Obama verify the Russian hacking claims, suggesting it be given access to any material relating to Putin's reported involvement. It's not clear what kind of action the US intends to take against Russia, but with Obama leaving office next month and the Democrats trying to pick up the pieces after a shocking defeat, what he does do could set the tone for his party's next 4 years. Yvette McCullough, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now from Hong Kong is Alex Montgomery. He's the Regional Asia-Pacific Vice Chair and Communications Director of Democrats Abroad. And from Baltimore, William Binney, former Technical Director at the National Security Agency. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Bill Binney, let me start with you. It's not just the Democrats who are saying that Russia hacked the election. Even Senator John McCain saying Russia's hacking threatens to destroy democracy and it's an unraveling of the world order. The FBI and CIA also both believe that there's enough evidence. Why don't you believe there's enough evidence?
Because quite frankly, the issue is, to meddle with the election here, the issue is who provided those email to WikiLeaks. As far as I know, I've seen no evidence from, it really has to come from NSA, because NSA has all this information. They have the worldwide network. They've collected data on the entire worldwide network, and they've got trace route programs by the hundreds sprinkled around all the switches in the world. So they can trace all the packets of data going around and reconstruct where they came from and where they went to. So, I mean, the point is NSA should be speaking up if they've got evidence to show that the Russians passed the data to WikiLeaks, then they should present it. I mean, the other issue is Julian Assange is trapped in the Ecuadorian embassy and they're watching him like a hawk. He's cast iron cover, I'm sure. So they're looking at everybody he communicates with. So his social network also becomes a main target for WikiLeaks. So they basically have an idea of the extent of WikiLeaks, and they should be watching those people cast iron. And so they should know all this, and they should have it in their databases. If they haven't found it yet, they have to go look, but it's in their databases.
Alex Montgomery, are you convinced by any of that? I mean, here's the man who was the whistleblower at the NSA. Here's a man who knows a thing or two about hacking and leaks.
Absolutely. Well, the 17 intelligence agencies together submitted a statement that Russia was behind the hacks of both the DNC and later of John Podesta. At this point, it's quite clear that Russia was behind this, and the question is not who did it, but what are the implications for us moving forward, and what do we as a nation need to do to make sure that this hack or similar hacks wouldn't affect voters' outcomes in the future?
What if, Alex, it was Russians, but possibly Russians with nothing to do with the Kremlin?
Well, there's a lot of what ifs, and there are two sides to this. The first side is that you could say America lives in a glass house. We depend on the transparency of our government, free press, and a knowledgeable public to be able to have fair elections. And that makes it easy for a state actor or any other actor to affect the outcome if the American public doesn't know how it happened and what's happening. So what's incredibly important is that we have an independent, bipartisan commission to look at this and to figure out exactly what happened. I think you heard from Mr. Binney that he sees no conclusive evidence against it, but that doesn't mean much of anything without a further investigation. And so the first step is to look into it further and to figure out who was behind this. And then there's another set of issues as to what the Trump team knew and the sprawling network of interconnected companies around the world that we know he and his transition team and his cabinet members are involved in.
Bill Binney, when President Obama addressed this issue in his final address, he said, "I told Putin to cut it out." Was that an indication as to the gravity or lack thereof with regards to hacking? So if it did happen, if you have the leader of the free world turning to Vladimir Putin and saying, "Hey, cut it out," doesn't it suggest that even if they did hack, it wasn't sufficient or significant enough to influence the election, at least not in the president's eyes? I mean, you don't just say, "Hey, I told him to cut it out," if it was a major issue.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the other point is, coming from the intelligence agencies and an intelligence background, the point is you're supposed to prove your assertions. So far, no one has done that. I mean, this seems very much like another WMD assertion by the multiple agencies of the intelligence community. After all, the Central Intelligence Agency said in 2003, before the war, that this is a slam dunk. Well, it wasn't. It was just another assertion that they were making without proving anything. And that's my point. Before we go into another war or create another Cold War, we need to have evidence of what is really true. And so far, our government is not producing it for us to see.
Alex, burden of proof is on those who are claiming that it happened to, bring forward the smoking gun proof. And also, I mean, so we're talking about emails, right? We're not necessarily talking about the Russians hacking the voting machines or the Russians hacking the security systems of people's homes to ensure they stayed home and didn't go out to vote. Hillary Clinton still won the popular vote, right? To what extent are we talking about hacking as well?
Well, let's be clear. First of all, what we are talking about is a
me?
request for an independent investigation. So the questions that Benny raises are valid questions, and those are very much what we need to be looking into. As to did they hack voting machines? No, they didn't seem to hack the vote from what we know. It seems like they tried to hack the voters. And as I said, our system depends on us knowing where our information is coming from and having a fair and transparent election system. What we've seen in this election is that it doesn't. Many people, many Trump voters would have been sitting at home and watching Trump advertisements that showed information that came from these foreign sources, maybe without knowing where this information came from. And that's a really important thing for us to spread to the other American voters. It's not a question of did the Americans make the right choice or the wrong choice, or is this election over? We know Trump will be the president. In 30 days, he will take the office. But the question is, moving forward, what do Americans deserve to know about how this election took place? And what should we do to make sure that we have safe, fair, and transparent elections in the future? So having a transparent and bipartisan commission to look into this, I think, is what you'll hear both Republicans and Democrats looking for.
Bill Benny, how different is any of that to, say, what the Russians already are pushing out via RT, Russia Today, to American homes? Or what the United States does to other countries, whether it's Ukraine or Iran or elsewhere, where they're trying to give voters and others a nudge in the direction of their preferred candidate? Is there any difference?
Yes. Yeah. No, I don't see any difference there. But I'm still stuck with the problem of how many others hacked into the DNC or Hillary Clinton's server or anybody else's server. I mean, after all, they did it to OPM. So, and the Chinese did that, I assume. But you never know. But for sure, the Chinese and every other government in the world is seeking to get intelligence about the United States, and they're going to do it within the resources they have and the capabilities they have. So the issue still is if the only influence that was released publicly for the voters to read about was that data given to WikiLeaks. Now, the issue is still fundamentally who gave the data to WikiLeaks. Now, Julian Assange has asserted it came from basically an insider in the DNC. So, and you can't ignore that DNC insider issue either. So again, if NSA has the evidence to show the data being passed to WikiLeaks from someone in the world, then they should be able to show exactly who did it, and we shouldn't be questioning this. I mean, the real issue is even in the 9/11 Commission, they didn't even touch the NSA data, and that was a big mistake because there was a lot of information and data there that they ignored and oversaw. I mean, they just ignored it, and their report didn't deal with any of it.
Right. My final question
So we
for
need
you.
the truth, basically,
And
our
good point.
government has a tendency not to give us that truth.
Yeah, we need truth. Indeed. Alex, your window might drop out any second now. I hope it doesn't, but I have one final question for you. Last month, the Democrats seemed to be going through the soul searching. We didn't appeal to the Rust Belt. We missed out on middle-class voters, on white working-class voters. We need to look at ourselves and fight for the next 4 years. This month, the argument seems to be Russia did it. We were robbed. Aren't you a little concerned that the Democrats are getting consumed by paranoia instead of dealing properly with the challenges ahead over the next 4 years?
No, I'm not consumed because I don't think that's what the Democrats are really working on. I think we are set now to look at Trump administration and his appointments to his cabinet and the role that he will play along with the Republican Congress moving forward. So we are now looking at what do we need to do as the alternative party. How can we show Americans a better way forward? How can we show them that a rubber stamp on a Trump agenda is not what's best for the American public? And that's what you'll see Democrats doing. Now, all this fits in together with this Russian hack because one of the things that needs to happen is there can't be a rubber stamp Congress who is afraid to stand up to Trump just because he's afraid that it might be a little uncomfortable to have an investigation into this. So we're going to stand firm, we're going to stand strong, but we're really looking forward at what we can do for the American people and making sure that our agenda is providing an alternative to a rubber-stamped Trump, Putin-friendly Congress.
Alex Montgomery and William Binney, it's been a pleasure talking to both of you. Thank you very much for joining us on the Newsmakers. Relinquishing power may not be easy, but in Gambian President Yahya Jammeh's mind, it's not even an option anymore. One of Africa's longest-serving presidents was defeated this month to opposition leader Adama Barrow in nationwide elections. He initially accepted the results, but then had a change of heart. Despite mounting pressure from West African leaders, he insists no one can deprive him of the presidency. Christine Pirovalakis explains.
He once vowed to rule for 1 billion years. But Gambia's president Yahya Jammeh unexpectedly lost an election earlier this month. He initially accepted defeat after losing to opposition leader Adama Barrow and promised to step down after 22 years in power. Jammeh has been blamed for a failing economy, and his defeat sparked celebrations across the country. But now he refuses to accept the outcome.
I hereby announce to you, Gambians, my total rejection of the electoral results and thereby annulling the elections in its entirety. And until we will go back to the polls.
Gambians hoped West Africa's heads of state would be able to persuade their president to step down, but they failed and went home.
He ruled us for 22 years. We said king, let's king, and God another hand, so that devolved the country.
Yahya Jammeh first seized power in a coup in 1994. And he knows that if he steps down, he will almost certainly face prosecution for alleged human rights abuses, which include imprisonment, torture, and killings. Jammeh is now challenging the election outcome at Gambia's Supreme Court. The problem is, the court doesn't have any judges, so the government will need to hire them. And in the meantime, the country is on edge. Jammeh's security forces have seized control of the Elections Commission's headquarters in the capital, Banjul. And the military is being deployed on the streets of the tiny West African nation. The president-elect Adama Barrow is set to take over next month, leading a coalition of 8 opposition parties. But Jammeh is likely to go to great lengths to ensure that doesn't happen. Christine Pirovalakis, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now from Leicester is Mamadou Salah. He's a Gambia Affairs expert and a senior lecturer at the Montfort University. Thanks so much for joining us, Mamadou. So Yahya Jammeh won't step down. Is this a disaster?
Yeah, I think it's quite serious because the Gambian people have spoken loudly and clearly that they have elected Adama Barrow to be the president of the Gambia. And you have to realize that there has been 22 years in which Yahya Jammeh has been at the head of the government, and there have been many allegations about things that were done that were wrong. And I think it was the environment, the political environment was not conducive for people to speak out, to challenge authority, or to do anything that Yahya Jammeh did not agree with. So for the people to muster the courage and to choose to change peacefully through the ballot box, and then started jubilating, and then for President Jammeh to say that I don't actually agree with the will of the people, that I will challenge it, is really quite wrong, and it actually rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah, we were so close because it seemed as if he initially accepted it and then he changed his mind. Now, ECOWAS, the regional body, they said Jammeh must step down next month when his term runs out, and they vowed to, quote, take all necessary action to enforce the results. So let me ask you, Mamadou, what can they do?
No, I think there has been a lot of high-level diplomacy. I think there is a bit of like a silk and nail approach. Last week or so, you had the president of Liberia, Salif Johnson, Buhari from Nigeria, Kuruma, and Matma from Ghana and Sierra Leone. They went to see him and to try to persuade him. But obviously that's not successful. There was an envoy a few days ago from Mauritania, to actually try and persuade him. And I am also told that there are some other high-level people to be sent again to speak to him. So there's been a lot of diplomacy. But the bottom line is that whether it's the African Union or whether it's ECOWAS or the UN, they're quite clear that Jammeh has lost quite clearly and categorically the mandate of the people, and therefore he needs to live in peace. Whether he's going to live in peace or whether he's going to live in pieces, I think that's a bigger question. But there is talk of a military intervention as a last resort. I mean, we hope and pray that it doesn't come to that, but I think there's a very strong united will from both people in the Gambia and the international community to say that Jammeh has lost, and then the constitution of the Gambia is sacrosanct, and it has to be respected as well as the will of the people.
Military intervention from whom?
ECOWAS in their resolution kind of like said that they will use all necessary means to get Yahya Jammeh to concede to the will of the people. I mean, obviously diplomacy is the first port of call, and we hope and pray that it will work. But if that doesn't work, there have been hints that all other options are open, including a military intervention, possibly to be led by Senegal with the support of other West African nations and possibly with other powers outside of Africa as well.
Yeah, in the past few days, we saw him trying to garner support from within his own military. So even though he lost that election to Barrow, the people overwhelmingly voted for Barrow. Help me understand, just how much support does he have among the losing side, particularly among those who can do harm within the losing side, especially embedded within the military?
I mean, before we talk about the military, I think we need to say that almost every major civil society organization in the Gambia has come out to actually condemn the statement by President Jammeh from the Bar Association, which actually said that his action of annulling the election tantamounts to treason. These are very strong words. So you talk about the teachers' union, the students' union, you talk about the nursing. There's so many organizations and civil society organizations that came out and said, you know what, and you got to realize that this is happening in the Gambia where these organizations would not have spoken. It would have been unheard of even a year ago to hear them speak. And they're all coming out to say, even religious leaders are coming out to say, you know what, you have to go and you have to respect the will of the people. Now, in terms of the military, I mean, I think that's a bit of an unknown quantity. In some quarters, people believe that the military would actually kind of like remain loyal to Yahya Jammeh, and then if it comes to crunch, they will be on his side. But also some people believe that the military are just following orders now, and when it comes to choosing to follow what can be construed as an unlawful order by shooting on the Gambian people, that they would not do that, and they will choose the side of the people. But whilst all of these things are going on, the coalition led by President-elect Adama Barrow have been clear that Jammeh is constitutionally the president of the Gambia until the 18th of January. Yeah. After the 18th of January, if he doesn't go, as Khalifa Salah, spokesperson for the coalition said, then he could be construed as a rebel, and anybody who acts on his behalf against the wishes of the people could also be construed as a rebel. So, I mean, the military is a bit of an unknown quantity. So far, the CDS, because initially the Chief of Defense Staff, Usman Baji, apparently called Barrow to congratulate him and said that they will remain loyal to him when he assumes office. But in terms of where we are now, we can only speculate as to where the military would go or not go.
Yeah, and I just wonder, with the benefit of hindsight, if some members of Barrow's party are now regretting what they said in the immediate aftermath of the election. When Jammeh was accepting the results, when they were threatening to imprison him and so on, I wonder if they regret that maybe they just poked his ego a little and maybe he decided to then double down. We'll never know. He's not stepping down as things stand. Hopefully he does and follows the will of the people. Mamadou Salah, good to have you on the program. Hope to have you on the program again in the not too distant future. Thanks for joining us. In today's picture, this week marks the end of the Montgomery bus boycott in the United States. So Let's turn the clocks back to 1955. Imagine it's a time of legal racial segregation in America. In the southern state of Alabama, a woman by the name of Rosa Parks refuses to give up her seat to a white passenger on a public bus. Her arrest ignites a movement for equality. Let's boycott the buses and take a walk down the streets of Montgomery. You've been watching this edition of the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garta. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.